Let's take these 4 famous logos and turn them into horror, starting with Target. First, let's import the original logo. Then I'm gonna get these 3D hands and remove the one I don't need. But if it was cut off, there should be an edge. So I'm drawing a circle, placing it under the forearm and drawing an inner shadow to give it some volume. We also need a more realistic target, so I'm getting a 3D one, and I'll place it under the hand. Obviously, the hand can't stick on the target on its own, which means we're gonna need a nice knife to hold it. And to make it look like it's actually going through the hand, I'm masking the tip out. Of course, we gotta add a drop shadow to the hand to separate it from the target. It's finally time for some tomato sauce. We have to draw some under the knife, dripping on the hand, but also on the knife and coming out of the forearm. Now all we gotta do is add another drop shadow to the target itself, and there it is. I also made this inverted looking logo with the same idea. So tell me which one you prefer in the comments. Our next logo is Starbucks. And what if instead of being a gentle mermaid on cups of coffee, she was actually a terrifying creature from the depths of the ocean? First thing first, I'm gonna import a skull. I know this doesn't make a lot of sense right now, but you gotta trust the process. I'm gonna fit the skull to the mermaid's head using Liquify. And for the body, I'm importing another skeleton. Then I'm gonna cut out the arms and position them properly. Right now, we just have to put every element of the mermaid in place. So we're gonna need tails too, but the logo's proportions are kinda weird.
What is that?
So let's cut out the scaly part, warp it into position, and then place the fin on top. All I gotta do now is copy and paste it to the other side. But we're still missing the crown, so I have a 3D one that I'm gonna warp to be wider, and this 3D metal star will go nicely on top. The last element of the logo is the hair, which I also found in 3D, cut out, and placed on top of the skull. The thing is, they should be a lot longer, so we just have to duplicate, warp, and blend a bunch more on top. Obviously, we're not trying to make a Minecraft skeleton, so it's gonna need a face. And I'll just fit it onto the skull nicely. Now, the reason I got the skeleton first is to erase part of the face and reveal it underneath. Let's just paint the right eye inside of the skull, then give it shadows and a nice texture. But if the skin was ripped off like this, the muscles, or at least some flesh, would show under the skin. By the way, a lot of you guys watching are not subscribed yet, so if you're enjoying the video so far, subscribe. The thing is, we still have to cover the rest of the skeleton. And this mannequin is a perfect fit. I only need to draw some shadow and add a few rips in the skin, which would reveal some of the insides, like the heart and guts. The only thing left intact are the tails. But fortunately, I have these fish bones that I'm gonna warp in place and mask on the tail. You might argue that she doesn't look scary enough. And the easiest way to fix this is warping the mouth, painting inside of it, and drawing a bunch of teeth. The problem is the colors are all over the place, so I'm gonna make sure everything is some tint of green from the tail to the crown. And it's time for... So this is the horror version of Starbucks. Our next logo is Apple. First, let's get the 3D apple and liquefy it into the shape of the Apple logo. We also need to mask it out to perfectly match the shape. Then I'm gonna remove the stem and the leaf before filling the gap it left. Now I'm bringing back another apple to cut out the stem and leaf and warp them into place. And I'm even masking the leaf with the shape of the original logo. Now we have a nice realistic version of the Apple logo, but how do we make it horror? Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is making it a poisoned apple. So we're gonna import these nice drips and warp them around the apple. Now we need to paint the rest of the goo on top and obviously add some highlights to it. But this doesn't really look like poison, so we need to change the blending mode and use tint and saturation to make it green and slightly transparent. To make it scary, we're gonna paint an evil face in the poison and draw some highlights and shadows to give it volume. Finally, I'll add some bubbles coming out of the goo and make them green. So this is the horror version of Apple. But my friend Micah told me it wasn't scary enough, so I'm gonna desaturate the apple to make it look rotten and mask it to make a rotten spot. Then I'm gonna paint a nice worm, give him some highlights and shadows, but also these nice strips for texture. To finish it up, I'll just paint some extra spots of rotten all around the apple. I actually don't know if it made it better or worse. Our final logo is Xbox, and for some reason, the shape of this logo makes me think about carnivorous plants. So let's get this 3D plant and cut out its upper jaw. I'm gonna warp it to fit the top part of the logo and add back some texture on top. But wait, did you see this? You can head to Part-Time Artist or look under this video to get your very own Nice Job Team shirt.
Nice job, team.
Now we're gonna cut out the inside of the mouse and warp it in place. But the transition looks pretty bad, so we need to cut out the teeth. And while we're at it, let's finish the inside of the mouth. Now I'll cut the lower jaw from the carnivorous plant and warp it in place, then repeat the process for the remaining parts. It's finally time for shading. All we need now is a little bit of tomato sauce splattered around the logo, but also dripping from the mouse. And why not draw a puddle of suspicious red liquid underneath? But to really take this to the next level, I'm gonna apply a camera roll filter. So this is the horror version of the Xbox logo. If you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you'll love to see me make kid movie posters into horror in that one.